Hey guys, Becky Johnson here, sitting in this week for Banning Liebscher on the Banning Liebscher podcast. So good to be with you and join you for the next couple minutes in whatever you're doing this week. I sat in one time before and I shared a little bit about me. If I sit in on this a little bit more consistently, you're just going to learn little nuggets about my personality and who I am. And I'm using this time to just really be vulnerable here. Something about me is I'm a natural pessimist, actually. And what pessimists actually like to say is we're realists, right? We don't like the word pessimist because it has such a negative connotation. So I actually prefer to be called a realist. I am a realist. I like to look at things logically. Here's what I don't like to do. I don't like to get my hopes up ridiculously with like pie in the sky hopes and dreams of things that aren't actually going to happen because I like to be prepared. I like to look at things just in a really realistic way. And I have a hard time with super optimistic people like my husband. I married an optimist, and he is just, it's hard for me to not think it's fake when people are just like, everything's going to work out. It's going to be great. I'm like, no, not everything is going to work out when we're in the middle of a storm here. And so those kinds of people, I'm sorry if that's how you are. Those kinds of people are hard for me because it feels, one, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, and two, you're not being very realistic. So that's my natural wiring. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was totally okay with that. And I actually prided myself in the fact that I was a realistic person, not wanting to say I'm pessimistic, but it didn't bother me for most of my life. And I embraced that that's my personality. And my husband and I would just, we just joke around. Yeah, that's just how I am. And he's super optimistic and I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum. And I was fine with that until I took this personality test. And there's a clinical psychologist. His name's Jordan B. Peterson. He's wildly popular. And if that's a trigger name for some of you, I'm sorry. He is a little controversial sometimes. But he came out with this personality test that was really highly regarded in the field of psychology. And so my husband was like, hey, let's take this. Now, we love personality tests. I know Banning has talked about Enneagram and DISC and all these things. We value knowing ourselves and all that stuff. So I get excited. I'm like, I love this kind of stuff. And it's called the Big Five personality test. You have to pay money for it. It's really legit. And it breaks down the 5 aspects of personality. And there's 5 kind of measurables. And they're titled to different things, conscientiousness, like how conscientious are you and all that. Okay, so now I don't have a problem with being a realist. I don't have a problem, honestly, being a pessimist. I'm like, yeah, you know what? At least I'm prepared for worst case scenario. And I'm not just this fake optimistic, person who has their head in the clouds. Until I take this personality test and what they title this personality type that I'm talking about. And I read it and I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds horrible. And it's called high negative emotion. High negative emotion. Now get this, it marks you on 100. Out of 100 people, you're a 70. So they'd say you're a 70 in high negative emotion, meaning in a room of 100 people, you're more negative than 70 of them. Guys, I score a 98. 98 of 100 people in the room. I am more negative than 98 of them. And I felt so defeated. I felt so exposed. All of a sudden, this thing that I don't have a problem with about myself. When you put it that way, I'm like, high negative emotion. Who wants to lead with? Who wants to be around someone who's like, yeah, wow, they're a high negative emotion? And Derek just had my husband, he's cracking up because, of course, he scores extremely low in negative emotion. And all of a sudden, I'm like now having this identity crisis. I'm a highly negative person. Oh my gosh. I just thought I'm being a realist, setting everybody up in my life for success. And I am just a negative person. And so here's the thing that I realized about myself that I'm realizing. I have high negative emotion and I'm an external processor. And what this manifests as is what I talk. When I talk, my words and my speech are actually peppered with a ton of negativity. And what now I'm realizing is I'm a pretty fatalistic person in my speech. Not only how I think and prepare myself, but what I say. And here's the crisis I'm in right now is I am a follower of Jesus. I love God with my whole heart, and I am a student of the word, and I can't get away from the fact that my natural wiring, this thing that I'm dealing with of high negative emotion, this realistic outlook on life, it butts up in contrast to the life that God has called me to live, which is to be extremely sober-minded about what I say and to make sure that my speech and my words are saturated in blessing and in positivity. And so this is the journey I'm on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I need an adjustment here. I am an external processor. I'm saying all my thoughts out loud. I'm a high negative emotion person. I am just pretty much cursing things with my words. And I kind of had this moment in reading Genesis where it hit me why this matters to God and why the Bible actually has so much to say about what we're saying about our speech and about how we talk about things. You know, it doesn't take long in Proverbs to see there is just reference after reference about your speech, about the tongue, about what you're saying. And why this matters to God is because our words contain power. Our words are powerful. We are created in the image of God. There's no getting around that. God created us in his image. The very God who spoke creation into existence creates us in his image. We're creators. We're creative beings. Chris Valentin says it perfectly. He says, our words create worlds. And that's the truth. If we're imago Dei, created in the image of God, to co-create with him and to, bless this earth and multiply and be fruitful, then we have to understand, just like God is creative with his word, we have that power to create with our words. We have the power to destroy with our words. Proverbs 18:21 says, the power of life and death is in the tongue. What happens with Proverbs is when they become so popular and, needle point stitches on Bible cases and all kinds of plaques and things, when they become so common, you can really lose the revelation and the power and the meaning behind them. And I've heard that, the power of life and death is in the tongue. The power of life and death is in the tongue. You hear it so often when you stop and go, wait, the power of life, the power to give life is in my words. The power to destroy is in my words. This is why God's constantly warning us and guiding us. Watch what you say. I've created you in my image. Your words are not just words. Your words contain power. You can bless things. You can curse things. And we just don't understand this in the modern age. We don't understand this the way that they understood it in the Bible, in the Old Testament. And I'll take you to this, is where this all kind of started to culminate for me recently, was in Genesis 27. I'm reading the account of Isaac and his two sons, Jacob and Esau. Jacob's the deceiver. He's the second born. So, traditionally and culturally, the birthright and the inheritance goes to the older son, who is Esau. Isaac's in his old age. He's on his deathbed, and it's time to give the blessing to the firstborn. It's time to pass on the family inheritance and the blessing to the older son. That time comes, and Jacob, in this act of deception, pretends to be Esau, and he comes to his father, and Isaac gives the blessing to Jacob. So I'm reading this. We know this story, very popular. I'm reading it, and then Esau comes in, and so he blesses Jacob wrongfully. It's deceitfully. He thinks it's Esau. Jacob leaves. Esau comes in, and Isaac realizes, and they all realize, oh my gosh, you just blessed the wrong son. So Esau says, verse 34, Genesis 27:34. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me also, my father." But he said, "Your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing." And I always read this story and I thought, why didn't he just bless Esau too? It's like, it was just words. Why didn't he go, "Okay, I'll bless you too"? And I kind of, it kind of confused me. Like, why did he just not bless? I don't know. If that were me, I'd go, "Okay, yeah, I take back what I said on Jacob and I give it to you, Esau, instead." And so I started to dive into that a little bit of what was going on there culturally and historically. And it's so interesting when I'm reading what, scholars and commentaries say is that in that moment, what was happening was the ancients and the Old Testament, the children of God understood the power of blessing and the power of a word spoken in faith far more than we moderns understand it. Here's what Isaac knew. I can't just take it away. I've already spoken it. I've already given this blessing with my word, and that was it. There was not another blessing to give. And Esau knew it. Jacob knew it. Isaac knew it. They understood a word spoken in faith is going to happen. And there's no undoing that. That is not the way that we think about our words. That's definitely, if I really believed that about what I say, then my high negative emotion, external processing, realism goes, I'm like, wait, hold on. I am going to watch what I say. If I truly understand that my words are actually creating my reality, I'm going to wake up and say a lot different things about my day. I'm going into this podcast like, I don't know if this is going to make sense. I don't know if I'm going to hit my time. I don't know if this is going to be any good. This is what I'm saying out loud. And I have to stop and go, this is why God's word is just constantly guiding us and correcting us and warning us. Watch what you say. You're creating your reality that you live in. Your words matter. There's power in what you're speaking. There's power in blessing. There's power in cursing. And this story just shows that so much. We totally miss it. And it's just, it's not how we think about things. We're not thinking what I say about how my day is going to go, this meeting at work, it's actually going to happen. We don't see it that way because here's the reality. We're asking God to bless things in our prayer time. We're asking God to do things and move on our behalf and bless the very thing that we're cursing with our own speech. The very thing that we're if I could say this word, we're damning things like with our words, and we're being fatalistic about things and then turning around and saying, "God, would you bless it?" And I'm just like, God's probably like, "Guys, you have the power to do the very thing you're asking me to do. Like, bless your family, bless your day, bless the meeting that you're going into, bless your financial situation." Just begin to watch what you're saying and how you're talking about it. And, I think for me, my hesitation is I don't want to sound corny. I don't want to sound cheesy. I don't want to sound like the word of faith, like if you speak it and claim it and name it. But this is the word of God. There is power behind this. There's truth to this. And even Jesus says in Luke 6:45, Jesus is saying what's inside is coming out. Here's again why this matters to God. 2 reasons. 1, our words have contain power, and 2, our words reveal what we believe. The reality is, what I'm speaking, what's coming out, it's an overflow of what's inside. They're not disconnected. I'm not speaking things out that I'm not thinking internally. They're coming out of a heart posture, good or bad, full of faith or full of doubt, full of anxiety and fear, or full of, confidence and assurance. And so this is, again, why this matters, is because our words actually reveal what we believe. Our words reveal what we're trusting in. Our words are an indicator of the condition of our hearts. And so, yes, guarding your heart, guarding what's going on inside. The reality is they're not disconnected. You can't just, you can try to discipline your speech all you want. I'm going to watch what I say. I'm going to watch how I'm talking about situations. But unless you deal with your heart, and this is what Jesus was saying, you have to deal internally with what you trust in, what you believe, where you're putting your faith, and you have to correct that first. And that's where that overflow of what we are saying comes from. And I think the sad thing is we're in such we're so disconnected from this truth in the modern age that we just talk. We're so flippant with how we speak about things. We process things. We say things. We're putting all kinds of things out there without realizing, man, I am actually, I am speaking the very reality that I'm living in. And I need to pay attention to that. And I love what this whole episode in Genesis, it shows that. He's like, I can't. I've already said it. I've said it, son. I've given the blessing. And I thought, if I believed in what I was saying to the extent that they did as they're walking with Yahweh, and they understand my words are my words, my blessing is my blessing, and a curse is a curse, man, it begins to really convict me in the way that I'm talking about my own life, in the way that I'm talking about my own situations, my own family, my own challenges. It really brings that sober-mindedness. And that's what Proverbs, if you go and just look up, do a search on what's the Bible say about our speech. And it's just all through Proverbs is to be so sober-minded, to be so guarded, to be so careful about what you allow out of your mouth. Because God understands this, and he has he has our best in mind. And he understands you were created in my image with the power to create. What you say matters. And what you say reveals what you believe. So we have to deal with those things and not hide behind the personality of, well, apparently and the reality is I am more negative than 98% of people in the room. That is no excuse for me to live disconnected from the truth of God. That might be true. That might be how I naturally see things. Well, I submit my natural wiring. I submit that to Jesus. I submit that to the Holy Spirit and say, hey, my tendency is to be negative and fatalistic and real about whatever situation. But being a new creation in Christ Jesus, I have a new wiring. I have a new outlook. I have a different way that I want to see things. And that's what that's about. So here's the challenge this week. Forget about your life. What would your life look like if you understood the power of your words, if you were more guarded around what you say? And I'm thinking, your life, your month, your week, what would your day look like today if you began just to bless? If you began to bless, I bless this day. I bless the meetings I'm about to have at work. I bless my time at home with my family. I bless my kids. We've begun to do this with our kids, actually, as our family is having this revelation and this greater awareness of what we're saying. My daughter, she's 10, she's the oldest, and she's hitting an interesting point as a 10-year-old where the expectation of being the oldest is really starting to hit her. And we have a toddler and then a 6-year-old. So we keep saying to her, you're the oldest. You're the oldest. We expect more out of you. Or yes, you have to prefer the 2-year-old because you're 10. And she said this, guys. She's sitting at the table and she said, we talk a lot about birth order. She goes, I hate my birth order. She said that, I hate being the oldest. I hate my birth order. And I stopped, and at the risk of being corny, cheesy mom, I walked over to her and I said, Lucy, we are going to bless the birth order in this home. We are going to bless it. And I sat with her for 5 minutes, and I rearranged her speech. I said, We bless you as the oldest. You were chosen to be the oldest of this family. God has given you everything you need to be the oldest. You have the grace to be the oldest. We bless your birth order. Her whole demeanor. And, you can trust anybody to be realistic, right? And not paint an exaggerative picture here. Her whole demeanor shifted, guys. Shifted. She sat up taller and it shifted the moment. And we just said, hey, we're not going to curse the birth order in this home. We're not going to do that. When we began to bless her, and then every night we've been trying to make a habit of blessing each of them. We bless you as the middle child. We bless you as the youngest. We bless you as the oldest. And it is changing, guys. It is changing the way my kids embrace their place in the family. It is changing their dynamic. It is changing their behavior. And I am watching in real time. This is the lesson of Genesis 27. This is the lesson of that episode. Isaac already blessed Jacob, and he put the words out there, and the blessing came to him. And you read the storyline of the Bible, and that's what happened. He could only bless one because he understood a word spoken in faith will go forth. It will create. It will do what it's supposed to do, because that's how God has set things up. So here's your challenge. Be sober-minded about how you speak about your life, about your situation today. And if you are like me and you're going to score high in the negative emotion and you're going to get annoyed at the optimistic people, it's even more of a discipline for you. Challenge yourself to be mindful. Challenge yourself to go, wait a second. I need to shift the way that I am speaking about things. Deal with your heart on it and what you believe and where your posture is coming from internally. And then I'm excited. I'm excited to watch the blessing unfold before you as you're more aware of this.